Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go ahead and get started with the meeting of House Education Policy Subcommittee. If I would have Mr. Anavatarte, Senator Anavatarte, if you'd come to the main stage. That sounded bad, didn't it? Yeah. With that, I'd like to do two things before we get started. Representative Glaze, if you would open us up in a word of prayer.
Thank you, Chair. Let's bow. Thank you, Father, for your wisdom that will come through us today as we make decisions for our young people in this state. Bless this group, Lord, and bless those who sit before us, that we might do the will of the people. And thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Representative Glaze. With that, if you are a teacher or former teacher in the audience, would you please stand up and allow us to recognize you? Come on, there you go. Don't be shy. All right. Thank you for your service. With that committee, today we're going to hear real quick on Senator Anavarte's Senate Bill 32 and 45. We looked at these just last week. I know we've made a handful of changes over the weekend. Senator, if you'd walk us through 32 first, I'll let you have the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Senate Bill 32, also known as Alyssa's Law. Thank you for the opportunity to present the other day. As we discussed and as I committed, we would have a committee sub, and you should have that. Basically, updating lines 32 through 39, adding some language that was provided by the Department of Administrative Services. And I think with the recommendation also on line 36 and in the preamble, based on feedback from the committee, just to add the words multiple vendors. So multiple vendors have an opportunity to competitively bid on whatever comes of this law once it goes into effect. And that's the only changes I have on this bill, Mr. Chairman.
You'd read the LC number just to make sure we've got the right.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
So the one I have, I hope it's not wrong, 491421S.
Let's see, we got 491421S. Yes.
Correct.
That's good. Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing one, do I hear a motion? All right, motion do pass. So I get a second? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone against, like sign? Great. You're on the full committee. Senate Bill 45.
So Senate Bill 45, also known as AJ's Law, just addressing epilepsy and seizure disorder action plans in schools. We presented this bill last week, and I think there were some edits I think the committee wanted to make in terms of the number of teachers or per grade level, or I think just kind of that entire discussion. So I'm kind of, I think at this point, it's your will and what you want to do on that piece, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. And we did spend some time over the weekend, Floor Leader Wade, Representative Daniel, and we're going to stick with the language that you had in here. I believe it was one per grade level.
That's correct.
If the remainder of the committee feels comfortable with that, we felt like that was the appropriate size. Any questions on Senate Bill 45 from the committee? Representative Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So
Stop pushing.
you said basically it's sticking with the one per grade level?
Correct.
Okay. No, just we talked about it last time. I was just wondering because the word about the high school situation where they're organized by departments instead of grade levels, and you'll have a English department, social studies department, science department, all on different floors and buildings and things like that. So, but yeah, the principal should be able to work that out, though.
Yeah. Any other questions on the bill from the committee? I hear a motion do pass. There a first and a second. All right, all in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 45, say aye. Any like sign, say aye. All right, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman.
I failed to. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? I know we took testimony last time. Looks like we've got a couple people signed up to speak. One on 45, one on 32. Mr. Costley, I'll have you come up on 45. You wave? Okay. It helps when you pass the bills and then you ask for. Anybody on 32? Same guy. Okay. Wave again.
Absolutely, sir.
Beautiful. Representative Townsend, did you push your button?
I did not.
Okay. Awesome.
For the record, Buddy's a great guy.
Read that into the record. Buddy is a great guy. All right. With that, next up in the hot seat, we have Representative Albers. Or says, pardon the demotion. I know. Senator Albers. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great to have you back in the Georgia General Assembly and your august committee here today. This is Senate Bill 170. I'm going to give you a quick background of why this bill is so special. It is because when I meet with students throughout my district, when I go to schools, or even if they come to the Capitol, I ask them to come up with a great idea for Georgia and then email it to me. And my promise is if they do that, I will help them walk it through the process and up to the point where hopefully the governor would sign it into law and they'd be next to me. And these two young men who have presented this bill in most of the committees, I'm sorry they couldn't be here today, were from both graduated Lassiter High School. They're now University of Georgia Bulldogs. And Jake and Adam brought the idea of having student representation on the state school board as an ex officio member. If you will remember, we added the Teacher of the Year a few years ago, and now we are seeking to do the very same thing. It will begin with a essay process for a student that's 16 or older, in either grades 11th or 12th grade. They'll go through a process, and then there'll be a qualified finalist by the state school superintendent of 3 people, and ultimately the governor of Georgia will select that person to spend the next year as an ex officio member of our school board. In addition, it recommends to all local school boards or 181 school districts that they consider doing the same. It is not a mandate to them. We are not allowed to do that, but we do hope that they would follow the state school board's lead in doing that. I think it's great for both perception and reality to show student input at the state and local school board level. And with that, I would yield for any questions.
Thank you, Senator. I'm going to go to my right here, Representative Townsend with a question.
Senator Albers, thank you for being here. Thank you for this bill. Just as a past principal and superintendent, you see a lot of schools and a lot of superintendents are starting to engage kids at the local level with committees like this and what you're trying to do to be part of the board and advisory level. And I commend you to getting the kids involved because sometimes we don't ask them, and we need to. And they're down there. They study hard and work hard, and the kids need to be heard as well. So I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you very much.
Any additional questions from the committee here? Down front, Representative Maynor with a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the bill, Senator Albers. I love the bill, and hopefully locals will follow suit with it if they do so choose. Is there anywhere in the bill that, well, one, do you know when they have the Board of Education meetings, like the time of day?
You know, I do not know that off the top of my head, Representative Maynor. I'm sorry.
What I would like potentially to add is if this does go forward, to put somewhere in there where it can be an excused absence.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Senator, I'll take a point of privilege and ask a question. The board obviously has kind of official meetings. I'm guessing they have retreats and things like that. Would that person be welcome to kind of attend those, or how would that work?
They cannot participate in anything that is executive session,
Okay.
but they can participate in any of the public meetings.
Perfect. We'll go to my right here, Representative Townsend again with a question.
Chair, if it's okay if I add something to the Representative Maynor, which she asked about. what you can do also, we have something called School Sponsor Days, so school-sponsored activities. Students are allowed to participate in a school-sponsored activity, and that actually will keep them in perfect. Like for example, if you have perfect attendance, you do a school-sponsored activity, you still have perfect attendance after the event. So in this case, a lot of times your schools or school systems have that latitude to go ahead and make it an SSA or a school-sponsored activity. So you want to have to be charged in absence. They could go on their own accord and represent the school and, of course, the state. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Senator, we have a pretty diverse student body population in the state. Difficult to kind of narrow that down to one person. Was there thought to a couple or two or three? You know, I don't envy whoever's got to pick this person out. I mean, they're going to be the best of the best. What was the thought process there, if any?
Well, we choose the teacher of the year, and we thought if we had a teacher, we should have a student. Otherwise, we probably should consider doing more, which maybe having more teachers and students would be a good thing after all, but I think this is a good start.
Good. Representative Mader with a question.
I just would like to say that I know it says hearing only, and I would be open to it being up for a vote if the chair so chose to do so.
Instructions, we're going to keep it hearing only for right now, but yeah, that could change based on the will of the chair and the committee. So with that, Senator, I'd like to open it up. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the bill, I think this would be the appropriate time. Yes, sir.
Oh, he is here.
Well,
this is actually the author of the bill. This is Jake. I had no idea he was going to be here today. Come on down here.
That's awesome.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
I should have let him present the whole bill and just sat down. He probably would have got a favorable vote. Come on. Tell him about yourself.
I'm Jake Hayes. I'm a freshman at UGA, and yeah, I emailed Senator Albers about this bill, and now we're here.
That's awesome.
The board meetings generally start around 11 a.m. and go all day. And then I talked to the Georgia Department of Education about it like being excused absence and whether or not to put that in the bill, and they said that they could do that at the Georgia Department of Education level rather than at the legislature level.
Well, Jake, I just want to commend you from being here. I mean, this is awesome. I mean, kudos to you for getting this far, writing this, bringing a great idea. We need more folks in Georgia like you. So congratulations. I'm sure you've got an incredibly bright future at Georgia. If I might ask, what are you studying there? Hopefully political science or
English.
English.
And I'm going to go to law school, hopefully.
Awesome.
Fingers
Good for
crossed.
you. Good for you. We need more lawyers. I'm married to one, so I can make that. All right. Representative Maynor.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say congratulations on the bill as well. I'm very excited that we have a constituent, and not only a constituent, but a student of the University System of Georgia. So I'm really excited to support what you think is important.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Representative Wilkinson down front.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to thank you for also having people reaching out to the members of the committee, because I know I got an email and phone call. And I want to say thank you for working the process the way it should be so that I was educated when the bill came forward. Thank you.
Thank you for responding.
Awesome. Any other questions for Jake here? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much for your time. If you mind, stick around. I'd love to chat with you more and get to know you. But thank you for your work here. This is good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else in the audience like to speak on Senate Bill 170? Awesome. Well, good. Any other questions for the senator from the committee? Representative Glaze. Or, sorry.
Paris.
Yes.
Um,
Bear. You guys got to stop. There you go.
Hello. Hey, okay. Hey, Senator, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Great to see you.
Great. So I'm a little bit in gray as to what. So the student will sit on the board to advise from a student standpoint as to what the board may be doing right or wrong.
That's
from-
correct. To provide some student feedback in real time. Again, they cannot vote and they cannot go in executive session, but just the very same way we have the teacher of the year, he or she sits on the board as well for that same purpose, to give the teacher's perspective.
Mm-hmm. So we do also have star students in each county, right?
We do have star students in counties. Yes, that would be a
Right.
great way for the local school boards to integrate folks should they choose to do that, and I hope they do.
Yeah, well, the governor also could use that pool also, since they've shown that kind of exemplary. And then sometimes, I don't know, maybe a little diversity is a little bit better. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Representative. With that, Senator, I do not see any other questions. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, committee members.
Committee, we are just flying today. This is great. Model of efficiency. We have Senator Payne up next, who I believe is in another committee meeting right now. So we're going to take just a brief pause for a second. We'll head into recess until the senator is able to come, and we'll pick back up. You guys talk amongst yourselves. All right, Senator Payne, thank you. I know you are pulling double duty. I will give you a second to gather yourself, catch your breath.
Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, committee. This is I know we're having a hearing only, is what agenda says on this. Is that correct?
It is. I think we had read the bill and wanted to hear from you a little bit more about the intent, what it does, and what you're seeking to accomplish, and just get our hands around it a little bit more.
Hold on a second. I think
I've got a copy if you need one.
yes. Oh,
I don't think so. You just need a copy.
okay, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I have this bill is simply, it's not a real complicated bill. It's just basically making the genesis of it is to make sure, as juvenile probation officer for 30 years, and so many times I saw that troubled kids were often punted to get them out of people's hair, and this bill just seeks to rectify that and make sure that when a child goes home, whether it be long-term or short-term suspension from school, that school work will follow with them, and so that they can continue. Because as I tell people, I said, we've forgotten in society sometimes that teaching self-discipline to kids to learn how to self-discipline is education, and so when we're sending these kids home, they're not really we've lost sight of that ourselves. That this is not just to punish them; it's to teach self-discipline, and this allows them for their schoolwork to go with them, go home with them, continue to do their schoolwork even while they're suspended, And so therefore they can keep up with their credits and not lose ground educationally in the end. It also changes, and I am working off of, if this is correct, LC 491423S.
So we actually have, we've got LC 49133.
Okay, yes. The late coming arrival this morning.
You good?
And this one changes the time on the hearing to be held, and it's really just to make it suitable for all parties involved, that everybody has adequate time to be notified of a hearing. And I will yield to any questions you might have.
Awesome. I'll take a point of privilege and ask a question. Yeah, help me understand. And I was reading it. I was trying to, a lot of words and numbers, lines 23 to 27. It talks about the hearing is held no later than 10 days. And then it talks about no later than 15 days. Does 23 through 27 just essentially give 5 more days for folks to figure it out, or kind of help me understand that a little bit better?
Well, it's just primarily just make sure that there's adequate time, that all parties are there for a hearing, because I think for the most part,
Yeah. And if I may, hi,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
Morgan Bridgman. I'm policy counsel at Georgia Apple.
If you'd come up to the yeah, so we can hear you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Sorry, I'm moving a little slowly right now.
Oh. Speaking for two.
congratulations.
Thank you. 1 month left, so.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Hi, like I said, my name's Morgan Bridgman. I'm policy counsel at Georgia Appleseed, and we've been advising Senator Payne on this bill. So the current law requires that schools schedule hearings within 10 days unless there's a mutual extension agreed upon by the school system and the parent or guardian. What this bill does is focuses on that subset of children who are subject to that mutual extension, and provides that they too get a timely hearing, and that extension cannot go beyond 5 additional days if they're already subject to it, if that makes sense.
So it's not 15 additional days to the 10. It's 5 additional days to the 10.
Correct, and it's not even additional days. It's, again, if the child doesn't get it within that initial 10-day period and they've already been subject to a mutual extension, the school system then has to reschedule the hearing within 5 additional days, so that students don't sit out indefinitely, especially without instructional material.
Is there an issue now where hearings are not being held within that 10 days, I guess? Or?
So right now, schools, for the most part, seem to comply with the 10-day requirement. But again, because the law currently provides for that extension, there's then no cap once a child is in that subset. So we see that there's a lot of difficulty rescheduling a hearing within a timely period. There's no cap. There's no requirement to reset that hearing.
Got it. I don't want to be the one to ask all the questions, but I'll ask one more. At lines 34 to 40, are school systems right now not sending kids home with work to do, or yeah?
No, I can tell you that from firsthand experience. No, not all schools are, and a lot of times when they're suspended, the school systems, especially if it's with a long-term suspension, such as they don't, work does not follow them home. And this is just to make sure that, they can continue. The school is required to make sure that they have access to the educational materials while they're home in suspension.
Okay.
And while they're waiting for the hearing to take place.
Perfect. Good deal. We've got a couple questions. I'm going to start to my right here. If both of y'all will hang out there. Representative Townsend.
Hey, thank you, Senator. Appreciate you bringing this bill. Question for you. With regard to number of days, I know I've seen in some settings where the parents have asked us before to delay it because the attorney wasn't available at the time. We want to make sure the student has a right to an attorney, right to counsel. And so we would delay the hearing. And it wouldn't go past 20 days, I would say, in most cases. I guess I'm trying to read through it again to make sure I didn't miss it. If a parent needs to delay it because of attorney counsel privilege they have under your bill, would this allow them to delay it to 20 days, like instead of the 15? Like, I've seen that happen.
If there's a mutual agreement, both, yes, that would be able to do that.
So
Okay.
the school would have to reset it within the 15-day period, and then if the parent or guardian, for reasons like you just stated or other extenuating circumstances, needed to extend it past the 15 days, they could do so by written request to the school system.
Okay. Can you show me where's that at so I can kind of
Yes,
see
of
it? I
course.
apologize. I just missed it.
No, it's all right. So that's line 26 through 28. Yes.
Begin suspension.
So line 26, so the hearing may be held later than 15 days after the beginning of the suspension upon a written request to the school system by a parent or guardian. So we just want to make sure that a hearing gets reset, that it's on the books, and then in the event they need to push it out even further, they have the ability to do so, but they have to request that.
Okay. Would the parents, if I can ask another question, would the
Yes.
parents have the right to, will they be given that in their tribunal packet? Because the students get a tribunal packet when they get suspended for a certain amount of days or want to go to alternative school. Would that be clearly stated they have a right to request to go back to pass that mark if needed?
Yes, it should be in a tribunal packet, of course.
Okay. I just want to make sure because that's the key for.
Will you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. I'm sorry, I'm Karen Cloud. I'm the Legal and Policy Director for Georgia Appleseed.
Okay. Yeah, my question is going to be make sure the student has the right. The parent knows up front when they get the tribunal packet from the Board of Education that they know they can go, let's say 5 extra days a day, 20 because of counsel. Because we want to make sure, we always make sure that the students had counsel if they wanted to. That's their right. A lot of them did have counsel, but the ones who did want counsel, we wanted to make sure they had that right. So I just want to make sure the parents know that. It may be the intent in there, but I just want to make sure there's something in there written-wise where we make sure it's in some kind of packet.
Right. I think what we generally do is when we have legislation that passes, we will also provide recommendations to the school board, to the Board of Education rather, that will outline, how do you inform parents, how do you kind of instruct parents about how they can go about requesting an extension and what they can expect in terms of that time frame, so that there are very clear directives for parents moving forward into that next school year, so they understand how the law has changed and how that impacts, their rights as it relates to tribunal hearings.
I understand. Thank you. I just want to make sure recommendations doesn't mean they have to do it. So I just want to make sure if we're going to do this, let's make sure the school systems notify the parents appropriately.
Okay. We can definitely do
And
that.
currently the way the law is written, there's no requirement for schools to provide a tribunal packet. They just have to provide notice. So notice provisions are obviously part of the disciplinary code, but they're, a separate issue that is also something that we'd love to work on in the future. But for now, this particular portion leaves it within the discretion of the local school systems to provide notice with, in a way that they feel complies with the law.
Okay. I just in my perspective, if something you may want to think about, if we could somehow make sure that's in the notice, so it's not just recommended to protect the students' rights.
Right. Okay. We can look at that.
I'm going to have the committee pause for a second. I understand y'all have a substitute and that clarifies some of this language. And so I've actually sent somebody out to make copies for the committee.
Yes, I have the old one. And
You have,
right here.
yeah.
You may have
okay.
addressed that. I apologize.
No, you're good. Yeah. So we're going to take another just brief recess here while those copies are made and distributed
Okay.
to the committee, if that's okay. Yep. In the meantime, may I ask, boy or girl?
This one's a girl.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Well, I will tell you that that's one of the things that I told my son-in-law, my daughter and my son, they have 3 boys. I said, you got to have a girl. I said, not for my daughter's sake, for my son-in-law's sake.
Right.
You need to have a daughter. Because you just don't, daughters just grab a daddy's heart and just, oh yeah, I told him at my daughter's wedding, I told her, I said, you might be becoming his wife, but you will forever be my baby girl. First. You're my baby girl first. My son was second, but my daughter just.
All right, we are back in action. For those in the audience, this is how the sausage is made. It's not pretty, but Chairman Payne, I am looking at LC 491423S. Awesome. Members of the committee, I'll give you just a second to kind of look this over here. Looks like we've had some changes both to lines 25 to 28 and 35 to 40. I'm going to provide my opinion. I like the changes 35 to 40.
And I think the lines 23 through, or the lines 25 through 28, it's in essence reworded to make it for clarification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it didn't really change anything, just
At school days.
right.
Mm-hmm. School.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm just reading over the bill, right?
That's fine.
All right, with that, Representative Glaze to my right, did you have a question? Go for it.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, the grade level instructional materials that are required to be provided to our students, a lot of that is inside of a portal now, and they can go in and actually access that. Also, teachers are notified and they place that information there. Is it also incumbent upon us to consider deadlines that teachers might have that might conflict with students being out of school, having an out of school suspension? Or do we take care of that at the local level?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. We felt that we didn't want to go too far in
Okay.
telling local school systems what that time frame needed to be, because the kids are when they're out for the 10 days. Our hope is that they can get the school work to them within a day or two. But we didn't want to impose time limits that they might not be able to meet, because you've got we're talking about every school system in the state. So you've got some that are really small. It's going to take a little more effort to get the schoolwork together. But and they can provide written materials or, like you said, virtual materials. So,
Well, I was just talking about on the side of the student being able to make sure that they actually can turn it in by the time they return to school, and sometimes that might conflict with the date it was actually due in the school. So I was just looking at that from the student side.
from the student perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. I'm going to go down front here to my left. Representative Maynor with a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. What an important topic, suspension, and what does that really mean? Because for me, what I'm thinking about is, why are we even suspending students if we're supposed to be teaching them? One question I have is, when you mentioned the days, right now it says it can just go on forever. And the first question is, what is like the maximum that you guys have seen as far as when they were allowed to have their hearing? That's the first question.
I think our record, which is not something to be proud of, that we've seen for children who come through one of our programs at Georgia Appleseed was 55 days, which obviously was an incredibly long period of time, and the student fell behind, and there were a lot of repercussions from that delay in getting her a disciplinary hearing. She was kind of in limbo, frankly.
Right. And Chair, if I may ask 2 more follow-up questions.
Go for it. You got it.
My colleague mentioned parent or student legal counsel. Is that paid for by who? Is it up to the family to?
It's really up to the family. For the cases that we handle, we have a partnership with DFACS to represent children who are in foster care specifically, and that is all pro bono for those children. But for children who are not in care and you just have parents across the state, they generally are paying for legal counsel to come in, and so they have to have time to find legal counsel, to consult, and for legal counsel to get all the documents from the school, and to collect evidence and find witnesses and prepare testimony. So this is all at the parent's expense for most of these cases, and it can definitely take some time for parents to not only secure counsel but have counsel prepare for these hearings.
And would it be safe to say, and this is a question, children that are most likely prone to getting in-school suspension, is there a correlation to them not being able to afford counsel?
I think you do see higher rates of suspension among children who are living in poverty. But I will say we have people call us weekly seeking representation for students in school disciplinary hearings, because sometimes it's not even it's beyond financial. It's actually just the access. Is there someone in our area who actually can hear this type of case? And so there are financial barriers, but then there's also barriers in terms of access.
Okay. And then my last question, if you don't mind, is I think it's a great bill. My last question is, when in the past, it's a twofold question. In the past, if someone's on suspension at home and they have not had the work, has the school been reporting back to the state or federal government about their seat time being less? And then going forward, if they are receiving the schoolwork at home, does this now mean that the seat time is qualified for?
So we don't really have any statistics on the seat time in terms of, kind of how that's measured by the schools. Our main focus really was just on the child, him or herself, just not falling behind. But if there's no requirement right now for the state to provide any kind of materials, and so I don't think that's even something that's necessarily on the radars, if that makes sense. Kind of worrying about the instructional time or what they're missing and seat time. So as far as we know, and that's something that we can definitely look into more, but that I don't even know that there really is a calculation of missed seat time, because there's just, right now, there's no requirement to really focus on it at all or give any attention to it at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. We're going to stay down to my left here. Representative Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe you already addressed my first question, which was regarding school days. I see you added the word school in there, so on lines 25 through 28. The second question, I guess, is just a question or comment. So this is appropriate grade level instruction does not mean that they're actually getting their classwork. So you can still fall behind. You're just not losing the knowledge, but you still are missing all the assignments. You're missing the tests. You're missing all of that. That will cause you to eventually probably your grades to drop. You're just getting the knowledge. Is that correct?
That's we tried to again, we were trying to make sure that we had the interest of the child in mind and understanding some of the limitations that the school may have. And so it would really be up to the local school system to kind of mandate whether they say, hey, actually here in Fulton County, we're going to ensure that whatever work we send home with the child directly correlates to what the class is doing. There may be some other systems that say we just are going to give a packet of work that covers kind of the general material, so that, yes, I mean, this child may miss a test or two, but they will at least still have the information, like you're saying, and have that knowledge, so that when they come back, if they're able to make up an exam or something like that, they will be able to at least at that point make the work up, or take some exams when they come back and not feel like they're completely behind.
So one follow-up question. Is there a risk that you have a student that's in, say, the accelerated class, AP class, or whatever it may be, you're giving them the appropriate grade level work that is well below what they could be doing? They view that as something that's not worth their time. They don't do it. Will they be facing additional punishments because they did not do that work? Or are they going to be graded on this work by somebody? Or are they going to be graded by just checking the box when they return it? I mean, are we going to, in essence, possibly harm a child by giving them the work? I get why we're doing it, but is that a risk?
I can tell you, as a 30-year juvenile probation officer, the harm done to the child is when we send them home and they literally fall through the cracks. That's the beginning of falling through the cracks, because these kids are often already disciplinary. They've got issues going on home. I always said the kids were never the problem. They were always the result of the problem. And a lot of times the issues in these children's lives builds as they go throughout their years. So these are the kids that typically do get suspended a lot and do wind up going home. But then but those kids are the ones that fall through the cracks, because when they go home, there's no expectation of them. And so that's what we're trying to rectify, that we're keeping them with appropriate grade level material, keeping them so they are still engaging their minds in subject matter, and so that when they do come back, at least, because these are the kids that literally feed into that percentage of kids that when they turn 16, they walk away. And so if we can reach them in their earlier years, maybe they won't walk away when they're 16.
Perfect. Thank you, Chairman. With that, I'm going to go to my left here. Representative Cox with a question.
Thanks, Chairman. Love the bill. Love the goal. Get these kids back in school, or at least keep them educated as fast as possible. My question is, clearly we were at 10 days, and now this is at 15, and that's due to some structural issues probably happening at the school. Do we know, or do we have anything in place structurally at the schools that we could get them faster than 15, 10, and maybe hit the 5 number? Like, structurally, how's things set up right now in our schools, and where are the problems?
Well, right now, I'm sorry, can you hear me? I'm sorry. They're paying them all over you. Sorry. So right now, federal law gives 10 days. So that's a due process. I mean, that gives the student that once a child is suspended over 10 days, hearing has to be held. And so that's kind of the federal standard. And so what we are trying to do is to say, for the most part, every school system is going to schedule that initial hearing within that 10-day frame, or like right at 10 days. They are going to do that. The subset of students that we are really focused on, as I think Morgan mentioned, is the subset of students who request an extension. And that may be, that may be 30% of the hearing. So 70% of kids, they're having their hearing within 10 days as is kind of federally mandated. That subset of students who need a continuance for various reasons, we have kids who've been in the hospital or kids who need an attorney. Those are the kids we're trying to say that extension is what we want to limit. We want to make sure that if an extension is granted, that it doesn't go beyond 5 days. So, it's a very focused subset that we're worried about, because those are the kids that once you get that extension, the days can just kind of go on and it can be endless. So that's really what we're kind of focused on, is those kids.
May I ask another question? So the communication going to the parents from the school, what method is used for that communication to happen?
It should be, as we call it, I guess today, snail mail, but it should be the USPS.
So just my thought off the cuff is maybe there's a better way. We can text and email quickly, because if snail mail is the reason that we're having to kick it down, let's utilize technology we have today to take care of the students, to get them back in the classroom sooner. But that's just a thought that I'm thinking, how do we solve it, right?
But it's also realized, excuse me, that every child does not have access to that technology.
Sure.
In every corner of our state.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Not seeing any other questions, I will ask, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the bill? I think, buddy, we've got you signed up. Why don't you make your way to the podium? And Chairman Payne, I know you've got a meeting to run to.
Yes, sir.
You're welcome to. I mean, we can. Yeah. Yeah. It's that time of year. Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Buddy Costley. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Association of Educational Leaders. And coincidentally, our organization provides the tribunal training for the entire state of Georgia to our administrators. Any administrator who is going to serve as a hearing officer or a tribunal member on a disciplinary panel that you're entertaining today, or actually prosecute a tribunal. In other words, if they're having to bring a kid to a tribunal for a violation of the student handbook, they have to have the training that Gail provides. I do want to compliment Senator Payne, who's always a joy and a pleasure to work with, and I've had the pleasure of working with the Appleseed organization. They are very well known amongst our leaders. They're a very passionate advocate for our kids and do great work. One of the reasons I'm here is that we've worked together on the language, and it's gotten a lot better, quite frankly. But I did want to say, with all respect, that there are some problematic issues in terms of the implementation of these changes and domino effects that we feel like should be addressed before this law is passed. First of all, what would a kid to be in this situation are tend to be, they are not legal prosecutions. They are issues where a student has violated the student handbook for egregiously enough that they would need to be removed from the school environment, or at least from the main student body. We're talking about issues like, unfortunately, what you see on TV. Someone has brought a loaded firearm to school. There's been a very violent incident at school, sometimes drug offenses, sometimes threats to teachers, direct threats to our staff would necessitate someone facing a disciplinary tribunal. Obviously, we're trying to keep order in the school, but also protect the kids' rights. And that's the important part that I'm here for today. This is a due process issue so that the kid is guaranteed his or her rights, even though they perhaps are guilty or not, we'll find out, of these egregious violations of the student handbook. The issue that at hand is every school system in the state by current law must have this tribunal within 10 school days so that it doesn't drag on. There are issues that go in with that. If the student is not a student with a disability under IDEA, it's a much simpler process. You charge them, you set a hearing and date, you communicate that date via letter or other means, and the parent shows up. They have a right to counsel. Then what happens is like sometimes they can't get the counsel on the date that we set the tribunal, and they ask for an extension. There's your point. On line 25, it says parents or guardians mutually agree to an extension. The whole issue that we're dealing with is at the parent's request. The school system is legally bound. We must have this tribunal within 10 school days. The only reason it would ever go over 10, other than violating the law, is if the parent has asked or necessitated an extension. What the author is trying to do here is make sure that the system doesn't drag out for an anecdotal 5 days, etc. But we point out again, the only reason that extension can actually happen is at the parent's request or demand, and we'll mutually agree. Here's the problem with this language. The first sentence we helped them write, and so we were happy with it because it's easy to interpret. In which case, the school system shall set a new, so an extension has been agreed on. The school system shall set a new date and time of the hearing that shall not occur more than 15 days after the first day of the suspension. There are two issues. The first issue is 15 days. We feel like, and I actually told them this on the phone, is actually going to violate a kid's ability to get to a hearing. They may not be able to get their lawyer in time, or under special ed situations, there are hearings, other hearings we have to have, manifestation hearings, to determine whether a disability is what caused the behavior or not. And sometimes that can be an arduous process with lawyers involved with that, and sometimes you can't get that done in 15 days if the mama needs more time. My issue is we don't want to force a school system to have the hearing without the mama there or without the kid there because we're trying to meet a deadline of 15. The sentence that we did not expect to be added was the second one. It says the hearing may be held later than 15 days. That gives extra time, and we think that solves the problem. But here's the big problem. Upon a written request to a school system by a parent or guardian, that gives the parent or guardian full range to drag the hearing out until the end of time, because the system has no say-so in this second clause about whether the parent gets that extra extension or not, or how long it goes. The parent could theoretically, and we have that many, many times, we have parents who are intentionally delaying the tribunal, and that would definitely cause a kid to be out of school for 55 days. That second sentence gives the parent every bit of the power and authority to drag a hearing on until the end of time. 15 days is not enough. So our recommendations are two. One is, we're kind of okay with the cap because nobody wants to drag out a tribunal, most certainly the systems, because we have to drag people out of class, out of buildings, and create hearing space to have these hearings. And sometimes it's not the only one that we're supposed to have. So we recommend that be 20 days to deal with the special ed issues that are often accompanying these issues, make sure that the kid's rights are held in his other committees. Two, that second clause is extremely problematic. We would ask for time to work with the author on that, because for a mama to say perpetually, nope, I want another extension, no, I want another extension, and the school system have no say-so in the matter is extremely problematic. I'll be glad to take questions, but I really appreciate the opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you, Mr. Costley. I think those are valuable comments, and this hearing only will give us an opportunity to kind of work on the language and get to something that all sides can agree with. We've got two questions that have popped up. I want to remind folks, I want to be cognizant of our time. We're up against the 2 o'clock hour, but with that, I'll go to my right, Representative Townsend, the question.
Mr. Costley, thank you for coming today. Question for you. What's the difference in what they gave us regarding the 15 days parent notice and what you're saying regarding 20 days? Because if they're allowed to, they get the notice and they're allowed to request 5 more days. Let's say you set it at a max of 20 days total. What's the biggest difference in the language, or what's the significant?
So the version that got across the Senate was the problem. There were multiple interpretations of what it meant. So a lot of our folks started to panic, say, oh, no, that language cannot get into law. So what we helped, and they've been great partners. I want to make sure that's clear. We helped them write the words, in which case the school system shall set a new date and hearing of the time of the hearing that shall not occur more. And then the language we asked for was 20 school days after the first day of suspension, which dealt with all the reasons why the extension was needed in the first place. Period. No extra sentence. The second sentence was added because somebody asked the question earlier, is what happens if they need that extra 15 days? We felt that was too short. So let's say if it was 20. So the second sentence was added to make sure they could extend it back. The problem is it's the parent that gets to extend it and extend it and extend it. So we have very, very serious issues with the second clause.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, buddy, for that. And with that, I will go ahead and adjourn the subcommittee on policy. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. interested, there is a sign-up sheet on this side table if you would like to sign up to speak to one of these bills. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Let's see. Representative Townsend, are you here to present for Senator Brass? There you are. Yes, ma'am. Okay, we are going to be hearing Senate Bill 170, Senate Resolution, 175, and I've got LC 491337. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm presenting for Senator Brass, and who had, I think, 3 other commitments. I'm not sure what he's going to. But it's a great bill. It's one of those I'm honored to present. It's something where it's kind of homegrown, where I've done this kind of stuff back in technical education. And the 175, really, I'm going to have to tell you a little about Senate 86 bill in conjunction with this, if that's okay first, that you don't have in front of you. Because really 175 supports 86. 86 basically will allow students in high school to take their HOPE credit they're allowed to use as a senior and just bridge it or move it over to 10th grade and use it early. Right now, you're supposed to use your HOPE scholarship money, and the HOPE scholarship toward your core courses as a junior and senior. You start that junior year. And then if you run out of credits, you can actually use those technical credits, the HOPE credits, to take technical programs like CNA, advanced manufacturing, those kind of programs, those high needed fields. What we're trying to do, there's some pilots out there. Noonan's been working on with advanced manufacturing. In Albany, they're doing Phoebe Healthcare Systems doing it. And there's other communities across the state in Columbus and other areas that have kids go into the workforce early by taking the courses early, and they're really hitting the ground running as a senior in high school. So this basically sets up that framework with the new laws that we've passed regarding HOPE, have those kids start taking the HOPE credits 2 years early instead of a senior as a sophomore. This is budget neutral. And then by senior year, they could be working for such as your local hospital system as a CNA, and also finish the courses and go straight into an RN degree as well. Do the same thing for advanced manufacturing. They're doing it now through the German apprenticeship model in Noonan. So that's 86, and that's going through higher ed right now as we speak. What 175 resolution does, what's before you, this allows for the research. 86 dies in 3 years if it gets passed. It sunsets in 3 years on purpose. That way it can't get out of control. Well, we know HOPE, after a while, people started overusing it, is a good way of saying it, I guess, which my daughter took 39 hours and loved it, but I know people took 90 hours, and some of the courses weren't their core and really wasn't, it wasn't going to be their major, but they took it anyway. So, but this all is very, I've got samples of what 86 could look like if you really want to see it, either today or on a side session, to tell you how it would work for the different programs. But 175 basically is the research of it. So there's a study committee. Before you'll see how they prescript who gets to, what members are on it, a joint study committee of the House and Senate. And it tells you, and also workforce, it tells you who appoints them. Basically, it keeps the data of the students involved. Is it successful? Is it effective? How much money we're spending? Is it really budget neutral? If it's not budget neutral, is it really good to keep it going forward after 3 years? So they purposely set a sunset on this for the as a safety guard, I guess, a guardrail to make sure it doesn't get out of control. So that's kind of where it's at now. This is more of a study committee would have in front of you. If 86 doesn't pass, you won't need this because you won't have a program, you won't have an initiative to study. This is supported by businesses, as like I said, some pilot programs out there now that's being effective. And you've got some major employers in the state that really would like the workforce. And this allows kids to take, it's their choice whether they do this or not. They're not forced to try to take college courses early if they don't want to as a sophomore. That's up to them. That's up to them if they want to be in CNA and go into advanced manufacturing, like you've seen opportunities like I said, the Noonan area, Covington area, and other places across the state. And it could be for other fields as well, such as welding and other areas that are those high need fields. So I'll be glad to answer any questions, and there's some people here that's part of the, I guess, technical education network, whether it's through career academies or whether it's through CTAE, the Career Technology Association, any of those. I know there's some people here that can speak as well to this, and I'll be glad to answer any questions about 175 before you, or if you want a little more in-depth about 86. I wasn't quite sure how far to go because you got the bill in front of you. It's a pretty basic bill, but it's so useful. We're going to need this research from this committee if we can get 86 passed and across the way to really help our students out in the state of Georgia and help our that workforce problem we're having, especially if it's budget neutral. And like I said, we'll know that. In the first year, think about the program. First year, really only your pilot schools will have time. The high schools are making their schedules now. It's February, March. You go, wait a sec, high schools are making schedules for next year? Right now, most of the people, some of them already have a schedule for next year. You never know, especially your seniors. So right now, it's kind of late in the game to really get it going for next year, except for the ones already in it. Then after that, this gives a full year for other people to jump in. So 2 years, you'll have plenty of research out there, plenty of, I said, the guardrails in place, and just looking forward to a favorable vote, hopefully, and any questions I may answer.
Representative Maynor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the bill and for bringing it for Senator Brass.
Yes, ma'am.
I would definitely support the bill for line 52 and 56. I would just like it to specify that the people that are appointed, if we could have someone from north, south, the coast, and the metro Atlanta area. Our districts are so different. The workforce needs are so different. How the schools are teaching are so different. And I think in order for the study committee to have a fruitful conversation, it would benefit to have people from throughout the state of Georgia.
Okay, thank you.
Thoughts on that?
No, I understand that. I understand what you're saying, and I think that would be the intent. I mentioned intent. You got to be careful of intent, don't you? But that would be intent to get a broad spectrum of the state engaged in this with different people, especially if you have, let's say, Albany's known for their Phoebe partnership, Noonan's known for their manufacturing partnerships, different areas like that. And so you would definitely want to be well represented.
Thank you.
Representative Adana.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Is this limited to just technical programs, or would we look into some of the...
To access the HOPE grant, as in like you would have senior, once you expend your hours as a junior in the HOPE scholarship, it would. Okay. It'd be any of those technical programs, but it's across the board. I mean, it could be welding, robotics, manufacturing. It's really across the board. You have quite a few CT programs out there that you could manufacture. It really would tie into whatever's in that community that's important, and it's a highly need field. Then you kind of merge it. It's a perfect marriage. So it satisfies some of the workforce needs, but it also gives those kids opportunities.
Okay. Thank you. Good.
Thank
Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rep. It's a good bill. I agree 100%. And my question centers around Representative Maynor's concern as well with the appointments to the study committee. Maybe some kind of guarantee of some kind of diversity on those groups, on that study, either geographically or whatever, rather than, so we can make sure we study the full gamut of who's going to be in this study. So some bills I've read, and there again I'm new here. Some bills I've read where they gave the opportunity for the minority leader to make some appointments on some of these study committees. So I don't know if that's possible or not, but I just thought that might add to the holistic view of the bill. A good bill. I think it's going to be a good for our students.
No, I understand. Thank you. I think the intent is for that. 'Cause if you know anything about CTAE, it's colorblind, and it's really important to include everybody. And it's important, and that's so important to have that makeup of what the state looks like, and the businesses and the community. And I think the intent's there, but I understand what you're saying.
Chairman Dubnik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was really looking forward to seeing Chairman Brass today, but I appreciate you standing in his stead.
Yes,
So-
sir. I'm probably a poor substitute.
Yeah, you resemble that remark, Senator. Representative, and maybe if I could just offer commentary on a number, having been on your side of resolutions over my career in this House, and maybe just for comment to the committee. Traditionally, our study committees, especially joint study committees, have seen members appointed at the discretion of the Speaker, and that those members serve at the pleasure of that request from the Speaker. But I also know that it has been very much in the past, such study committees have seen, thought about geography, as we say, about subject matter, about any other things that come into play, because inevitably our resolutions that create study committees, should that study committee be properly formed and undertake their job, should bring back legislative action in the next year. So I commend you for bringing this, look forward to supporting this, and Madam Chair, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions, and so I'm going to call up Irene Munn, and she's going to speak to this bill. Resolution.
I'll speak quickly. If there's a motion sitting there, I don't have to talk. So I'm here representing Georgia's College and Career Academies and the network, and very much appreciate your consideration. And just for the committee's understanding too, we work with the governor's office as it relates to their appointments, so they're well aware of this legislation also, and appreciate that and your interest in getting dual enrollment right for our students. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, I don't see any. So since we don't see any more questions, Chairman Dubnik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Senate Resolution 175 do pass.
Okay, we've got a motion do pass. Okay, we'll get there in a second. So did I hear a second? Second, okay. So we have a motion and a second, but we have Representative Maynor who wants to make a motion to amend. So Representative, explain your motion if you would.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For line 52, I would like it to point out the different areas of the state, and I would like to rely on counsel for the best way to phrase it. But 4 members of the House of Representatives that represent areas of North Georgia, South Georgia, the coast of Georgia, and Metro Atlanta, Georgia, as members of the committee, and the same for line 56. And Madam Chair, to just add to the importance of this, we do have workforce development needs across the state, and I strongly support engaging youth in these workforce development programming. But the state as a whole is so different, and I just would like to make sure that representatives that are on this committee, the voices of the districts they represent, are heard, because someone in North Georgia would not know what's going on the coast, and likewise in the city of Atlanta.
difficulty is we're dealing with only 4 members, and so we've got North, South, Coast, and Metro. Are those the 4?
North, South, Coast, and Metro.
Okay. So.
So the South would do everything except the coast?
That's kind of, you can see the dilemma. So if you have to have the North and you have to have the South and you have to have the coast, then you have 1 metro. There are several metro areas, so you could just say representing members from throughout the state to express your interest in it being broadly represented. And if you want to specifically state different areas.
What about if it said all areas of the state?
Areas throughout the state.
Yeah. Okay.
So you could say on line 52, 4 members of the House of Representatives from regions throughout the state. As members of the committee, so you would insert from regions throughout the state. And the same change on line 56.
Yes.
Should I? Just to apply for your Chair, Representative Maynor, would it be amenable to you if Senator Brass kind of worked on this language and presented the new language in full committee? Since we're having a little difficulty doing that, and I will tell you this, that I know that everybody from the metro area thinks everything south of metro is South Georgia, but I am from Middle Georgia. And I will tell you this, if people if you say South Georgia and don't say Middle Georgia, there's going to be fireworks. Somebody's from Middle Georgia out there. So I think maybe we can suggest this to Senator Brass, and he can kind of work on that and present it in full, and we can hear it then.
He has he said regions throughout, so he took out naming the specifics.
It would read 4 House members of the House of Representatives from regions throughout the state. And 4 members of the Senate from regions throughout the state.
Okay. So would you just read that a little louder just for everybody,
Sure.
just to kind of get that in our heads? Gotcha.
Madam Chair, on line 52, I would recommend inserting after House of Representatives from regions throughout the state. So it would read 4 members of the House of Representatives from regions throughout the state as members of the committee. And similarly on line 56, you would insert after Senate from regions throughout the state so that it reads 4 members of the Senate from regions throughout the state as members of the committee.
Okay, so we have this motion. Do I have a second for this? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Chairman Dubnik.
Madam Chair, again, and with all due respect to my good friend from Metro Atlanta, I believe that, as I stated a few minutes ago, the integrity of these study committees have been intact by precedent set in the House, and I would assume the same in the Senate. And I fear personally that trying to change or dictate where those prospective members come from could end up prospectively not doing what we're hoping to do, as our chair has so pointed out. And then there's Middle Georgia, and you know, I look, Representative Ridley and I talk all the time. We're both from North Georgia, but he's from Northwest Georgia and I'm from Northeast Georgia. And as Speaker Ralston reminded me once, those are two very different sides of a mountain. And so I just wanted to voice that with all due respect to my friend. And I just have concerns about such a change, while I do agree exactly with the direction where you're going, Representative. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to say that.
Thank you. Representative Carter.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And not everyone in Metro Atlanta calls everything south of 75 South Georgia. But what I wanted to say that I do understand what my friend is trying to lay on the table, but I believe that it will be accomplished by just understanding when these study committees are conducted. They're usually conducted in various locations around the state, and they bring in speakers. So I would be concerned that we would be limiting getting the best people or having the option to put the most expertise on the committees, but confident that as they do the study, if they're traveling throughout the state, that we should be able to accomplish the goal of getting the diverse voices. That's just my comment.
Thank you so much. Oh, you were blinking again. Okay, never mind. Okay. So all those in favor of the representative's amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. No. Okay, it's the opinion of the chair that amendment fails. So there's a motion and a second on Senate Resolution 175. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, this bill is its resolution, is sent on is passed and sent on to full committee. Okay, and now I'm going to call up Senator Burns. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We've got Senate Bill 50, and we are working from LC 540142.
That is correct, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much.
Go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to share with you Senate Bill 50. This is a bill that grew out of a need, and the need is for additional lifeguards in our state. We have a challenge in finding qualified lifeguards. Most lifeguards are young adults between the ages of 16 and 22. If they are certified, they're generally certified by the American Red Cross or some similar organization. What this legislation allows, but does not require, it allows a local school system to include instruction in lifeguarding and aquatic safety. So if you look in the bill briefly, in section 1, it basically says if you have a school in grades 9 through 12 and you have an aquatic program and you wish to offer lifeguarding, you can begin that in 20 and 25. The only requirement is, again, it's a may at the school level. The only requirement is if you create a curriculum, it has to follow the standards of one of the major leading national experts in aquatic safety, either the American Red Cross, the American Lifeguard Association. I'm looking at 32, 33, 34, and following. American Lifeguard Association, the Star Guard Elite, the Stop Drowning Now. Any of those programs have excellent programs in teaching water safety, lifeguarding, and aquatic safety. So we're looking to expand the number of lifeguards. In lines 50 through 54, this would allow 1/2 a unit, 1/2 credit, Carnegie credit, as an elective to be awarded should a student choose to take this curriculum. By the way, the student can take the curriculum, but there's no requirement that they be certified. They have the option of being certified at the individual level. But the bottom line is it would be able to meet some of their requirements for their high school diploma. If you look at Section 2, you see a number of focused programs, and I point your attention to line number 81. Line 81 simply adds lifeguarding and aquatic safety to the approved list of focused programs that can be taught in secondary schools 9 through 12 in Georgia. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for coming. I have a lifeguard at my house, so
good.
I love this. Let's see, Representative Maynor, I think you were first up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the bill. Senator Burns, I was a City of Atlanta lifeguard at Mosley Park, Maddox Park, as well as South Bend Park.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. We need more young people who are willing to do that today.
And I also just because schools may not have a pool, but within your bill, it does say that the schools can partner.
They can partner with community organizations and use facilities that are not necessarily a part of the local educational resource.
Absolutely. Thank you for the bill.
Thank you.
Chairman Dubnik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, I certainly support your bill and
Thank you.
very, very appreciative of this. In my house, we talk about not necessarily being able to use words if you don't understand them. So if I could ask for some clarification.
Oh, okay.
If you'll go with me on line 19.
I thought you might pick out that word, psychometric.
So I just want to understand, Senator, and I'll let you get there. Lines 19 and 20, we reference.
Psychomotor skills.
Correct. And then again, we reference
Yes.
that on lines 30 and 31. Can you explain that to me, why it's necessary for the bill and what
The psychomotor skills is a standard term used in aquatic training to mean that you can coordinate motions and movements of hands and arms and legs. Like many of you, I was a lifeguard and I taught this environment. So the bottom line is you've got to be able to physically handle the challenges of accomplished swimmer, but also know the skill sets in dealing with a potential individual who is in a distress situation. So those psychomotor skills are basically motion skills that are required to meet the demands of the aquatic training programs.
Representative Adana.
I just want so would this primarily be done, this activity be done after school hours, and
it could be done
what kind
either
of commitment?
before, during, or after school.
Okay.
It does allow for academic credit. So if the school had facilities, and some do, not all, but some might have the facilities. If you had a particularly targeted schools who have a swimming team, competitive swimming. When I had the privilege of serving at Gordon State College as president down there, we had an aquatic center. We partnered with the community. We brought their students to our facility, and they trained them there. Sometime it was during the regular school day. Sometime it could have been before or afterwards. But that's flexible, and we're leaving it to the school to determine what's best for their environment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To put on my physical therapy hat, so psychomotor, as the senator was saying, you have to be able to not only coordinate what you're doing with your body, but lifeguarding, you're also dealing with emergency situations.
Absolutely.
And so you need to be able to think critically as well as protect not only yourself, but also the potential drowning victim. The other thing I wanted to just let the body know that lifeguards, for a child to be a lifeguard, they usually make a lot more money than just, working at a retail store. So I remember this was in the early 90s when I was a lifeguard that we were making like $15 an hour, which was a lot of money in Metro Atlanta.
If I could respond to the representative, she's 100% correct. There are opportunities out there today for individuals who have certifications in lifeguarding and aquatic safety, And organizations, private organizations, and public organizations have a dire need for this. And the representative is also correct. If you have to encounter a rescue situation as a lifeguard, as many of us have had to deal with, oftentimes the individual in distress is totally out of control, and you have to protect them and yourself as you get them to a safe place. So that's part of that psychomotor skill set.
I don't remember the exact, I was trying to look it up really quick, but lifeguards in California, if I'm not mistaken, they make about $200,000 a year. Just so you know.
They may be the surf lifeguarding variety. They may be the lifeguards on the
They're
beach.
on the
I want
beach.
you to know, I never made that. I promise you.
Yeah,
I think I made the $10 an hour side. Okay.
Representative Clark.
I was going to say at the proper time I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
And we don't have any more questions, and we don't have anybody signed up from the audience, so this is the proper time.
I'd like to make a motion that this bill do pass.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, shall this bill now pass? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. So this passes, and we'll go to full committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Higgins will carry the bill in the